Dear students, let's learn the poem The Listeners, written by Walter de la Mare. First of all, we should know about the author. Walter de la Mare, he was an English poet, a short story writer, and a novelist who was born on 25th April 1873 in London and he died on 22nd June 1956. He is popularly known for his supernatural horror fiction stories and works for children. He is also best remembered for this poem, which we are going to study today in the works of English literature. First of all, let's understand what is the theme behind the poem. The theme of the poem here signifies the position of man in the universe. This universe is so vast that he can neither connect with it completely nor understand it. The poem emphasizes on the man's state of isolation and disharmony with the natural world. And the poem goes just like this. Is there anybody there? Said the traveller, knocking on the moonlight door, and his horse in the silence chambered the grasses of the forest's ferny floor, and a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. So these are some lines from the poem. Let's try to understand these lines. The poet says here in these lines that a traveler went to a haunted house in the jungle or in a forest. He knocked at the door, visible only in the moonlight, and his horse began to eat the grass of the forest in a noisy manner. There were a large number of ferns growing in the forest. A bird came out, flying above the head of the traveler. He again knocked and nobody came out. Here are some word meanings given on the right side, like moonlight door. It is the time of night. Champered means to chew in a noisy way. Ferns. These are the flowerless plants that are growing in a forest. Turret is basically a small tower on the top of a building. Typically, we call of a castle. And smote here means to knock loudly. Now, these another lines. But no one descend to the traveller, no head from the leaf fringed sill, learned o'er, and looked into his grey eyes, while he stood perplexed and still. In these lines, the poet says that no one responded to the knocking by the traveller. No one leaned out of the window from which leaves were coming out. He stood there quite puzzled. Okay? Sill here means a horizontal piece of timber beneath a window or a door. Fringed means decorated. Perplexed here means confused. Another line is from the poem, but only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging the moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in air, stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. In these lines, the poet says that traveller felt strangeness of the atmosphere and the silence of the house in which ghosts seemed to be answering his call. His horse went on eating the grass under the stars of the sky and leafy trees. Here are some words given. Phantom. Phantom means ghosts. World of man means man living in different parts of the world. Thronging, the crowded place, or we can say crowd. Hearkening means to hear attentively, and stars means mixed. And one more thing that they the moonlight phantom shape it was made, that means the dear ghosts, their shape was made by the moonlight that was falling over them. Again, let's go through the poem. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness, answering his cry, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote the door even louder, even louder. For he suddenly smote the door even louder. Where uh, For he suddenly smote the door even louder and lifted his head. Tell them I came, and no one answered. That kept my word, he said. Dear students, in these lines, The poet says that traveler became impatient. He suddenly knocked the door again, but louder than before. He shouted out to listen that he visited this place and he had kept his promise. In the last lines, nevertheless, Tyre made the listeners through every word he spake fell echoing, fell echoing through the shadowness of the still house from the man left awake. Ay, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how silence surged smoothly backward when the plunging hoops were gone. In these lines, dear students, the poet says that ghosts made no movement. All the words that the traveler spoke filled only the dark, silent house and came back echoing. The listeners, that means the ghosts who were dwelling in the house, heard the traveler, placed his foot in the stirrup of his horse, and they also heard the sound of the iron hoofs of the horse which struck the stony floor of the forest while he rode away. Then again the place was again filled with the silence. Here are some words like cropping. Cropping means eat, turf is the grass, neath means under, star means stars in the sky. Kept my word here means kept my promise. Star here means moment, shadowness means dark reflection of light. A here means yes, star up, one of the two loops that are attached to a saddle for the rider's feet. Sound of iron, here sound that means produced by the hooves of the horses striking stones. And surged back here means followed back, like the waves plunging means moving fast. Dear students, this is recording the poem, the literal, we can say the word meaning of the poem. Now let's try to understand summary of the poem. The listeners is a supernatural poem which is full of the atmosphere of fear, wonder, and mystery. On a moonlit night, the poem goes in such a fashion. On a moonlit night, a traveler visited a house in a forest, which was haunted house. That means which was lived by ghosts. The house was lonely and deserted. In a forest, the traveler got down from his horse and knocked at its door repeatedly, shouted for someone to come out, but no one came out. No one came out. Here, the poet has created the atmosphere of silence, fear, and suspense by his ability. He thought that a large number of ghosts lived in the house, and they are listening to the voice of the traveler. They stood in the dimmed rays of moonlight falling on the staircase which was leading into a big empty hall of that house. The traveler, according to the poet, the traveler felt the strangeness of the whole situation, and silence was the only answer to his call. Finally, he knocked at the door, this time much louder, to let the insiders, who were insiders, the phantoms or the ghosts, know that he had come from the world of men to keep his promise. Then traveler went back, riding to his place, and the silence of the atmosphere returned. Dear students, it is a single stanza poem consisting of 36 lines, and the poem is rhyming in ABCB fashion. You know it very well. The title of the poem here suggests the focus of the poem. There are only listeners and there is no responder. Now, dear students, one more thing about the poem. There are certain devices employed by the poet in a poem. The devices that have been used in this poem are: one is alliteration. Alliteration, you know, that means a repetition of the sound in a sequence of words, like tongue twisters are there. They are also the example of alliteration. In this point, there are some examples I can here include. That's how the silence surged softly. This is one example of alliteration from this poem. In an air stirred and shaken of the forest's ferny floor. And one more device that has been employed, that has been used by the poet in this poem, that is onomatopoeia. What's onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia is the use of such words in a poem or in any piece of writing which include sounds that are similar to the noises they refer to it. Such device, such we can say such a literal device is known as onomatopoeia. Like we say, Cat mews. That means the words they resemble with the noise that is produced by the cat, like cow moos. We write moo. So here it is onomatopoeia. From this poem, champered is here, stirred is here, smote is here, shaken is here, and plunging is here. So these are here the examples of onomatopoeia. I hope you might have understood this poem. Thank you. We will meet again with another video. Khuda Hafiz.